Hello and welcome to our weekly IG Live. This is where we talk to inspiring people about how they got their start, how they are making their way. We also focus on diverse children's books and why that is so important and following your dreams. And so we are going to be talking to someone today. I see she just got on here. That's Tonya Duncan Ellis, and she is a children's author. So if you have older kids, they will really enjoy them. Sorry, just adjusting here. Hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's good to see you again.
Yes, good to see you too. For those that don't know, I actually had the pleasure of talking to Tonya. I think that was last month, like the beginning
Okay,
of June.
so seems like
But
so long ago.
I know it seems like so much has happened since then, but that was over on Multicultural Children's Book Days, so you guys can check that out. But I am very happy to be talking to you again. I know we'll have some people that are already really familiar with your books and some maybe that aren't. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little about what you do?
Okay, great. Well, thank you again for having me. My name is Tonya Duncan Ellis, and I am a children's author based in Houston, Texas. And I write a series of books called the Sophie Washington series about a tween girl and her diverse group of friends. And they live here in Houston and have different adventures in each book. There's 13 in the series now, where they stand up to bullies, they squabble with their siblings, they learn about getting along with friends while having a lot of fun. They're in the school spelling bee. In one book, they go to Costa Rica. That's the only one that's not set in Texas. So they do different things in each book, teaching children gentle lessons while entertaining them. I've sold over, I have over 150,000 sales and downloads of the book, of the series total. So I'm really excited about that as well.
That's amazing. And I know you had one that just came out, right? That, well, not just, but this summer came out. That's a really good summer read for kids.
Yes, my newest book is Sophie Washington Treasure Beach, and it released in June. So it was just a month ago. It does feel like a lifetime ago for some reason. And it's where they have a fun adventure in Corpus Christi. They find a message in a bottle and go on a sort of scavenger hunt to uncover clues and find a treasure.
And so why is it important? Why this series? Why Sophie Washington? I mean, we had talked, I think last time we spoke about how your books do a lot to normalize diversity in children's literature, in that Sophie, obviously, she and her family are diverse. She has a diverse group of friends, but a lot of times that's not necessarily the focus of the book. They're having these adventures and learning these lessons that really are universal to any child. And yet it's happening with a diverse group of friends. Why was that important to you?
It was important to me. Sophie is an African-American girl in Houston, and her friends are very diverse. Houston's one of the most diverse cities in the United States. So I wanted to show that in my series and to normalize their lifestyle. I have 3 children, and my youngest son didn't like to read, and that was one of my inspirations for writing the series. I wanted to create something that he would relate to and find relatable, because many times the books that I was showing him that featured African-American characters were trauma stories or stories about people who were enslaved or traumatized in some way. And he didn't really relate to those, and even though they're very important topics. So that's why I felt it was important to have this diverse series.
Right. And one of the things that I really love about the book, and this is partly the age range that you're writing for, because it's for older kids. I mean, they're chapter books for those that haven't seen them. They're not picture books. Is that they're really learning how to solve problems and address these problems. So Sophie comes from this very supportive, very loving family, and they do give her a lot of support, but her parents don't solve her problems for her. If she's having trouble with a bully or something happening in school, she kind of has to figure it out. I don't even mean like they leave her on her own, but they let her learn how to solve her problems. And was that something intentional, or why do you think that's an important message for kids to be learning about?
Well, in the snitch where she was being bullied, Sophie didn't tell the parents, so they didn't know what she was going through. But it helps the children when you don't have the adults solve the problems. And this is commonly found in middle grade books and upper elementary chapter books. the children need that agency so they can learn how to solve their problems themselves. And
Mhm.
by reading the books, they're working through common issues like standing up to bullies, managing their schoolwork, being a good friend, and they're learning these lessons on their own and seeing kids just like themselves solving these problems.
What kind of books did you like to read when you were this age?
Well, we didn't have books like Sophie Washington when
Yeah, that's true.
I would have liked to have them. I read books like Little House on the Prairie and
Mm,
also books by Beverly Cleary with Ramona,
yes.
Judy Bloom. So of course I'm dating you see the era I'm from. But those were the books. And I realized when I was trying to show these to my own kids, they did not relate to this. You know, my child's like, what would a little black boy in Houston
Right.
care about a girl on the prairie? He didn't relate at
Good
all. So,
question.
yeah. So those books, when I look back on them, and I still love many of them that I read, I see that they did not, they weren't really relatable, or they were little girls, so maybe that was how I related, but they weren't like I was at all. You know,
Mhm.
interesting how things have changed and evolved over the years.
Yeah, and especially I think looking back on, I mean, I grew up on, I think, the same books, but especially some of them age better than others. Like the Little House on the Prairie series is very problematic for me. Even though I loved it growing up, but now do I read them with my kids or not? Do we read it and talk about some of the problems that are in it? That's something that I've kind of struggled with myself. Have you
Right.
come across that? Or,
It was really shocking to me, the things that I didn't really notice back in those days. And there's a more recent book called Prairie Lotus by Linda Sue Park, which has a similar tone as Little House on the Prairie, but the main character is an Asian girl,
mm,
and it shows you what's going on with the Native Americans and all the discrimination that
mm.
happened. But the tone is like Little House on the Prairie, and it pulled scales off my eyes and made me realize all the things I didn't even understand or know about, you know, back in those days when I was reading those books.
Yeah, and then something I think I don't know, I've heard you mention elsewhere if we talked if in our previous interviews that a lot of times kids absorb these images without uncritically. We don't even realize, like you and I looking back on these books now, think I didn't even realize I was absorbing those images from Little House on the Prairie versus reading your books and kids are absorbing these images and internalizing this diverse group of friends, this African American girl coming from this loving family and being such a problem solver. I mean, what a difference for kids to be internalizing those images instead.
Yeah, that's really, yeah, I never thought of it that way. That is true. Yeah.
Yeah. And so can you tell us a little bit more about your story? Because part of what we do on this channel is talk a lot about encouraging people to follow their dreams, whether it's through your books, encouraging kids to think big and to be able to, as they're learning to be problem solvers, so they're learning how to follow their dreams in a sense because they're learning to be confident in themselves, or for yourself becoming an author. What was that journey like for you as far as deciding you were going to take that leap and follow your own dream?
Well, as I mentioned, I was inspired to write this particular series when I was trying to encourage my kids to read. But
Mm-hmm.
I started out young, wanting to be or interested in reading books and writing. I won a writing competition in the fifth grade. And then I wrote an article that was in my newspaper when I was 14. So from the time I was in elementary school, I wanted to be a writer. I had never met an author, so I didn't perceive that as something that was possible for me in those days. So I wanted to be a journalist, and I worked in newspapers for a while. I also wrote articles for a freelance magazine in my area for 10 years
Mm.
before I wrote my book series. So it kind of was like a bucket list item. I wanted to write a book, and so I wrote Sophie Washington, Queen of the Bee, the first book in my series, just as something that I always had wanted to do. I always wanted to book. And then I got the idea for The Snitch, the second book, and my children's school librarian said, I feel like you have something here. She really liked the books and felt like it was filling a gap in the children's literature space. So she hosted a author talk for me at her school, And then I started participating in community events and festivals in my community. And there was a huge groundswell of support for the books. I had written about 4 or 5 by then. I just liked writing them, so I just kept writing them.
Mm-hmm.
And then people started buying them, sharing them on social media, and it kind of just.
It already, were you self-publishing, or how were you?
Yes, I self-published my books because I wrote the first one and kind of thought, oh, this is just something I'm going to do. I
Mm-hmm.
want to write a book, I'll have one. And then I wrote the first 2. And then I got a really great, my current illustrators. Well, I had different illustrators for the first books, and I kind of just wrote them and kind of had them to the side. And
Mm-hmm.
then when I got my third illustrator and I started getting letters from kids and more reviews on the books, I said, kids really like this. And I feel like I believe in my books. I believe they'll be popular with children, and I want to really promote them. So after that, I recovered the first 2 books, and I kept writing, and I began attending different community events in Houston. And that's how the word got out. And I just kept writing as kids and parents and teachers would send letters in saying how much they liked them. Because I kind of intended to take it maybe to 10 books, but because they keep wanting more, I just kept writing.
Well, yeah, I mean, why not keep going if everybody wants to read more?
Yeah. But actually, last September, I got a literary agent. So now I'm agented, and I've been on submission with some other book projects, including picture books. So I should have some exciting news to share in coming months. So I'm looking forward to some special news. So please continue following for other news.
How exciting. So what was it? Why did you decide to get an agent? What difference, if for somebody who's just getting started or looking to write books, what difference does that make when you get an agent?
Okay, well, with an agent, your books are more widely distributed.
Mm-hmm.
So my books, or if I have an agent, my stories are presented to now they're the big 4 publishing company like HarperCollins, Penguin, Random House. They won't look at your books without an agent. And what the catalyst for me was that I got my books in a local Barnes and Noble store, and it had taken me weeks to get the book in, going in, talking, and I did a reel on that, and everyone was like, yay, yay. And then one of my friends asked, oh, well, can I get it in the one in another area? And I'm like, no, it's only in these 2 Barnes and Nobles.
Mm-hmm.
And I just started thinking, look at all the effort it took me to get it in that Barnes and Noble. And I said, I want Sophie Washington in every Barnes and Noble. I don't want it just in my local area. I want everyone to read my books and read my work. So then I'm a member of the Society of Children's Books Writers and Illustrators, SCBWI, and they have a reference guide called The Book. And I just got it out, and I queried all these agents. I just sat down, and so within a couple months, I got an agent.
Was it hard to find somebody that you felt like was a good match with you, that you felt really happy working with?
Well, for me, and it's very difficult to get an agent. Sometimes it takes years, and sometimes people send out queries and never get an agent. So that's a big hurdle to get an agent.
Mm-hmm.
And mine, I love my agent. My agent is Sarah Megabo of KT Literary. She is super, communicates constantly with me. She loves my work. When I first met with her, she believes in my work and what I'm doing. And I also spoke with some other writers who are clients of hers and interviewed them to see what their experience was. So for me, and it seems quick, it can take a long time, but really I've been writing for over 8 years. I've been writing for years.
Right.
So that, compared to some people, came quicker for me, but I have been working for a long time for this opportunity, I guess.
Did you ever imagine that you would be at this stage when you first started and you were just kind of writing a story to help your son get interested in books? Did you ever?
I thought it would be a fun thing for me, just a thing for my family and kids. So I never would have imagined that I would have an agent and all these other things that are coming up. And it's just been step by step for me. because when I started out, I remember one of my first events, I saw an author who had Amazon bestseller, and I was happy that I had my book. I'm like, I got my book. And I go, wait a minute, she's got Amazon bestseller. I want to be an Amazon bestseller. So then I learned how to do that. So I've just learned different steps along the way. Then I saw, someone had sold this amount of books or had this many reviews. So it's been a process through the years as I've continued on and learned different things. But
What
no,
what's kept you going through all of those steps? Because like you said, I mean, it seems like things did happen more quickly for you, but even so, this has been a journey of 8 years. What kept you going? Were there any points that you were like, you know what, this is so much work, I don't want to do it anymore? Or what kind of gave you that motivation to keep going?
I really feel this is my purpose, because every step along the way when something bad would happen, something good would happen. I remember one day I was like, I just can't go on. I'm so tired. This is so much. And I got a letter from a little girl with her dressed as Sophie Washington. And even with my agent, because I've gotten a lot of rejections, I share all the joy and happiness on my page, but there's behind the scenes, there's rejections continuously. And with my agent, I had gotten some rejections, and I was like, Lord, I don't know if I can go on. And I used to journal a lot of my experiences and look back on them and see where I've gone. And that very minute, like within minutes of me writing this in my journal, I got an email from my agent. So I feel like a lot of serendipity has happened. And even this year, I make vision boards each year. And everything I've put on there has come to pass within the half-year mark, many of the career goals I had. So for me, that keeps me going. And just seeing the children reading and enjoying reading, because that's what it's all about for me. When I see them, parents sending me saying their child never would open a book, and they've read the whole series. That's what keeps me going.
Right. So what's on your vision? Can you tell us a little bit about what's on your current vision board?
Well, for the current vision board, though, I made the one where things came true. I had some travel things personally, school visits, and I've had many more this year. Things with publishing companies, I've put their names on there. SCBWI, and I've done some talks with them. This year, they've asked me to do some national talks. So those are just a few of the things related to my books that were on there.
That's so exciting. Well, best wishes to you, and thank you for joining us today. I'm just looking at the time, so I'll go ahead and wrap things up, because I know I'm sure you're very busy, but we really appreciate you stopping by and talking with us today. And for those watching, you should definitely check out our Instagram and the website. The Sophie Washington series is really wonderful, and you have to watch for announcements for what's coming soon for her. That's very exciting. And just one programming note, we have a winner. We've been doing, for those that haven't been watching, we're doing weekly giveaways for Dee Dee Cummings books, especially related to the Kayla Modern Day Princess series. And so this week's winner, the name is Giovanni Camarena, which is at Lisbeth Rose _. So make sure to DM us with your address and your email to get your prize. Watch every week and you are automatically entered in the giveaway. And plus, just watch our Instagram page and you can have more ways to enter. So anyway, make sure to DM us and watch next week. And Tonya, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, bye everybody.
Bye-bye.